Hey everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy, stressed out Christians who want to thrive, who want to have freedom, abundance, and peace instead of being miserable.
Yeah, Christians who know that the Christian life just isn't just about,
drudgery.
Or confessing your sin and then trying for the rest of your life to not do all this whole long list of stuff. It's actually an abundant life with God. Jesus says we're joint heirs with Him. I mean, we are growing into that identity, where we're more fully, I don't know, it's hard to even talk about. It's just where we want to be. And it's not just a bunch of rules of what not to do.
I'm Liz Ferks, and this is my husband, Evan.
Good morning.
And we're so glad you guys are here with us today on this wonderful Thursday.
Yeah, thanks for turning on the show, and we pray that it would be something that increases your faith and helps you to grow. And if you find this episode particularly interesting or helpful, please share it with a friend and talk to them about it and see what they think. If we say something that you never heard before or you don't agree with, share it with somebody. See what they think about it.
Like LeVar Burton says, don't take our word for it. So since it's Thursday, today's CSC is being connected both in our relationship with God and with other people. So we thought we'd talk about harm versus hurt.
Yeah, talking about gentleness. One of the little lines in one of the definitions of gentleness we read, and we should probably read that definition again. I don't know if it's in there or something else I read, but how gentleness doesn't harm. It's kind of like doctors take that oath to not do harm, right?
Do no harm, not do harm.
What did I say? Not do no harm.
I don't know, but I just know it's do no harm.
That's right. And so God, when He's in His interactions with us, He's not harming us, but sometimes there is pain.
So the definition, this comes from the Complete Word Study Dictionary, New Testament. And the definition for gentleness, the Greek word is praotes. Meekness, mildness, forbearance. Primarily, it does not denote outward expression of feeling, but an inward grace of the soul, calmness towards God in particular. It is the acceptance of God's dealings with us, considering them as good and that they enhance the closeness of our relationship with Him. However, praotes encompasses expressing wrath toward the sin of man as demonstrated by the Lord Jesus. This meekness does not blame God for the persecutions and evil doings of men. It is not the result of weakness, but the activity of the blessedness that exists in one's heart from being actively angry at evil. That virtue that stands between two extremes, uncontrollable and unjustified anger, and not becoming angry at all, no matter what takes place around you.
So it wasn't explicitly in that definition, but
no, different.
But it is there. This idea of harm. This was one of those things. You talked about that big revelation for you, and this was one I think like that for me, where it's just like there's a difference between hurt and harm.
Yeah,
and we do well to distinguish those in our mind. It's so easy watching kids and I still struggle with this too. Like if I am experiencing pain, it's hard for me to have a bigger perspective of beyond what's wrong right now, right?
Right.
And to realize that, okay, whatever this is will probably heal, I would not lost a limb or anything where it's like irreversible harm, but, momentary pain is different than that.
I think this especially comes into play in the Christian life because, like we've been talking about all week, it's so easy to beat people over the head with the Bible, you know, especially because we do care about whether the people around us come to know Jesus or not. And we do care. It's important to care whether people are, aligning their lives with the way God designed them to be, because hopefully it comes from a place of love and like, okay, I really want them to be growing and to experience all this joy and peace and, freedom and all that kind of stuff.
So you might come to them and try to speak some change into their life and they could feel hurt by that. Right.
So I think, there's this tension between that, like, we need to keep growing, we need to help other people grow, and then this cultural value on niceness,
oh, sure, yeah.
That we talked about last week. Like, there's this value on not hurting anyone's feelings and not offending anyone and
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're too thin-skinned, and so the danger there is we think that hurt is harm. That when
Right.
we have our feelings hurt, that we're actually being damaged somehow.
Right.
And it's important to try to distinguish that out, because there are some things like a traumatic experience. I would say that's actually damaging
Right.
the kid or the person. You know, there's something that's never quite the same after
Right.
that. So, but getting your
Even-
feelings hurt is not, you know.
Well, and there can
or
be
ha-
hurt that happens. Like I was thinking about, one of my examples, I have really bad experiences with the dentist. Like,
I wrote down teeth too. Anyway, go ahead.
yeah, like so the first, I don't know, probably 8 to 10 cavities that I had filled, which I have a lot of cavities. Not anymore now that I've been healing my body, but
Yeah.
prior to that, every time I went to the dentist, I had cavities. So, anyway, I did not know that it is a thing in my family to be kind of resistant to Novocaine, where it doesn't really work on you. Or you have to, like, it works okay on me if they kind of double the dosage and it wears off faster than it would for normal people, but you just kind of, yeah.
But-
I have had many fillings done where I'm like ready to scream in pain. But when I was little, I would cry the whole time and the dentist would be like, stop being a baby. It's not hurting. We gave you this stuff. And it took probably, like I said, it was like the first 8 to 10 fillings before my mom was like, oh, Dad, Novocaine doesn't work on Dad. I wonder if it doesn't work on you either.
Yeah.
So that, it was supposed to be not harm because they were supposedly filling these teeth and taking care of my cavities, making my teeth healthy,
Sure.
right?
Right. And it's just pain. They're not actually, chopping your jaw off, even though that's what it feels like.
Right. But because of the psychological damage, it's like, well, I can hardly stand teeth stuff.
Sure,
I'm like,
yeah.
nobody talk to me about teeth stuff. So
Yeah.
it's it's something that I've had to work through.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's what we do as Christians. We're like, hey, I want to help this person. I'm going to help them fill in their cavities. But because there's no gentleness with it, it's actually harmful. Mm-hmm. It's not just painful.
Yeah. And I think we could also, if we are experiencing a pain, somehow latch onto it and kind of, I guess this is what bitterness kind of is, where you almost cherish it. And then you're starting to kind of self-traumatize yourself, and it actually kind of becomes harm.
Yeah.
The thing I was thinking about with teeth was, the pain and the discomfort of a child losing teeth, but then growing past that into a full mouth of healthy adult teeth. And how amazing is that, right? It's this interesting kind of transition that God has built into the process of becoming an adult. And it's not very fun. Well, we've got one daughter that's great at it and one that is not. So maybe some people don't see that as a very big deal, but.
Yeah. I was thinking about, when we're talking about gentleness, like we want to be gentle with ourselves and gentle with others. I was thinking about that quote from Spider-Man that Uncle Ben says that with great power comes great responsibility. And we do have the power to harm ourselves and to harm other people. So we have a responsibility to make sure that we're gentle, that we're not harming them, that even when we're hurting them, it's not because we don't care.
Yeah.
I was thinking too about that time when one of our daughters got a bunch of splinters on the back of her legs and we had to pull them all out with a needle.
Yeah.
It was a lot of splinters, so.
And it was very, very painful for everybody.
Yeah, I was crying while we were pulling him out. It was not fun.
Mm-hmm. And, what was she, 2 or 3? Didn't understand what was going on. And we're like holding her down and digging into her leg, trying to pull these things out. So.
Right.
I was also thinking about how amazing it is that God, in his healing power, like if the difference between hurt and harm actually is this kind of irrevocable damage, like you lose a limb or you become paralyzed or something, God is still able to take that and make it a beautiful thing.
Yes.
And that's his business, so so the harm is not coming from God. Like that we beat ourselves up in this world, or we beat each other up. And so when we're getting harmed, it's because of sin. It's just human activity. If it's from God, it may be painful, but it's not harm. But then God can still redeem the harms that we do to each other and to ourselves. I just think that's so amazing.
That is awesome. It's like that definition says that this meekness does not blame God for the persecutions and evil doings of men.
Yeah.
Like God is able to redeem those broken places and fill them up with gold. If you're into kintsugi, which is the Asian art of putting, taking those broken pieces of pottery or china, stuff like that, broken things, and instead filling in the crack with gold so it becomes an art piece itself.
Yeah. I just saw this amazing thing on YouTube this week where this guy, I guess it's been 8 years now, but he got paralyzed in an accident at the beach. Like he almost died because he was in the water. Like he was diving into a wave and there was actually a sandbar right there and he got paralyzed. And his friends had to drag him out of the water and stuff. But that happened when he was like 15. And he's, I don't know, he just graduated from college, so he's in his 20s now. And he's got this YouTube channel. I'll try to link to it because it's just an amazing story. He said his relationship with his family is amazing now. Like his mom does all this stuff for him and he's grateful and they have this great relationship. Whereas before, when he was a teenager, he didn't really appreciate or respect his parents. And now he does. Like, so it's become this beautiful thing that he wouldn't change. And evidently his family wouldn't either, even though it's been really hard. I mean, could you imagine having a child who's paralyzed? I mean, his mother has to bathe him and help him go to the bathroom and get him dressed. And, and he has these seizure things. And so he's, getting set up and ready for sleep is very elaborate. And then waking up, everything's elaborate and everything's complicated.
Yeah.
But their relationships have become more rich and deep and vibrant because of this harm, irrevocable thing that his body will never be the same. And
that's part of God, turning something from harm into hurt.
That's right.
The growing pains out of trauma. I love, when you talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, which is something we are intimately familiar with. They have a corresponding thing that, I don't know, scientists, psychologists, whoever have named post-traumatic growth, which is just so great to me, because it doesn't have to stop with the post-traumatic stress. That you can move through it and grow and become a much better, healthier, more free person to where you look back and you're like, man, I'm so glad that I went through that.
Yeah, that's kind of that turn your pain into your passion kind of thing. These things that are inadequacies of some kind, whether it's just our natural inadequacies as a person to do whatever because we're not God and we're not all powerful, or as a result of an injury or someone traumatizing or abusing us, like those can become our ministry.
Right.
And God does every day do amazing things through that kind of stuff because he's in the redemption business.
Exactly. So before we do anything with somebody else, like confrontation or whatever, we need to ask ourselves, is this hurt or harm? Which I think is a big part of that. Take the plank out of your own eye before you deal with the speck in your brother's eye. Yeah,
good to do that when we're interacting with people. And then when someone's interacting with us, realize that they can't actually harm us.
Right. As always, pick whether today is going to be awesome or not, whether you're going to strengthen those neural pathways to look for the good things or to look for the negative things. We love you guys and we're praying for you. Thanks to everybody that's been listening to the show and sharing the show. We really appreciate it. If you have found this episode helpful, please do share it. Come back tomorrow and we're going to continue our discussion on gentleness and talk about
untangling hair.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how do you put that into a good...
That it's never too late to engage with God's gentleness and his goodness. Like, I think, well, we'll talk about it tomorrow, but we get this idea of like, oh, it's too much pain. If I open that Pandora's box, like, I've been kind of not dealing with an issue for my whole life. And so why even bother now? That's not true. God and his...
It's never too late at all.
And God's gentleness it's effective to sort out the mess.
All right, you guys, have an awesome Thursday.
See you later.